Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's FBC Radio Live. It's Thursday, October the 27th. We are barreling into week 8 and, of course, Halloween weekend. One of my favorite times of the year. Actually, it used to be, John, certainly my favorite time of the year, October, especially when I was in college. Halloween at UMass was by far the best time of the year. And if you were lucky enough that Halloween landed in the middle of the week, you got 2 weekends of it, and it was always quite a good time. Quite a good time.
Plus, you had the beautiful fall foliage, right?
Of course. I thought you were going to say something else, actually. But yes, no. The foliage, the beautiful foliage, was certainly what was the highlight of that. No, obviously, anyone who's ever participated in a college town Halloween knows it's quite, filled with studying and appropriate behavior, and no one's ever excessively drinking or going outside. And, in the Northeast, wildly inappropriate clothing for that time of the year. So, no, it was always a fun time. And obviously Halloween's, just a different beast when it comes to holidays and stuff like that. And I always enjoyed it. So, John, what was your best Halloween costume growing up? And I'm not talking about the Aaron Rodgers outfit that you dress up in every single day. I'm talking about like Halloween costumes.
Halloween costumes, okay. So as a kid, I can't even remember. I think I probably went out as a football player several times, whether it be at the time, you didn't have access to all the stuff you have now. So, my parents would take me and we'd buy a football outfit. I think like Fran Tarkenton was the big selling one when he was playing with the Giants, or believe it or not, O.J. Simpson when he was with the Buffalo Bills. But when I was in college, I went to Suffolk University, so that's in the city. We didn't have dorms at that time, so it was a commuter school, so the parties were a little bit different. One year I went, and again, I'm a big movie buff and like classic movies, so I went kind of obscure ones too, in a sense that not everybody was going to look at me and go, "Oh yeah, that's the character from a real well-known movie." With me, it was one time I went as Ratso Rizzo, who was Dustin Hoffman's character in Midnight Cowboy, one of the great performances of all time. It's, again, mid-'80s. The movie came out in 1969. Another year, I went as Malcolm McDowell's character in A Clockwork Orange.
There you
Alexander Delarge. Yeah, that movie came out in 71. I think I used that costume in 1985. Of course, if I did that today, maybe the Malcolm McDowell costume would still resonate because that's kind of a cult film that even kids in college now love. The Midnight Cowboy one went over everybody's head, but that was kind of my intended purpose. I like to be different.
That kind of reminds me of Chevy Chase in Community when he came to Halloween as the Beastmaster, completely outdating himself by quite a wide margin. I went obviously as Batman when I was a kid. I was probably like 4 years old, and my mother actually made the costume and stuffed cotton balls in pockets on the arms to make it look like I had muscles. I still have to do that now to make it look like I have muscles. And for those wondering, no, I am not going as a ghost right now. I haven't seen the sun in quite some time, and with this light in front of me, I'm realizing how white it's actually making me look, almost translucent. So no, I am not dressed up in a costume right now. When in college, though, and I one of my favorite costumes actually was put together in about 10 minutes, and that was I went as Jim Carrey from The Cable Guy during the basketball scene. So the story behind this was originally I had to work that night. I was like, all right, well, I guess I can't go out on this night. Come to find out, I got out a lot earlier, and there was plenty of time for me to go out and go enjoy the parties, but I didn't have a costume. So what did I do? Well, I had to go to the only place that I could think of, and that was Dick's Sporting Goods. And I went and bought running shorts, a tank top, headband, and all that, and actually worked out pretty well. The only problem, though, John, was it was about 40 degrees out, and I was very, very cold.
Great choice, though, because that's an outstanding film. He's so good in that.
I love that movie.
Incredibly talented guy. That's a good choice, and that is a quick one, right? Because you just get those kind of nerdy shorts that you maybe wear up a little too high, and then you get the headband, which is obviously the key thing. The knee pads and all that stuff.
Well,
And then you go tackle people.
I had the socks. I had some old New Balance shoes too, like the old style. So it kind of worked out pretty well because they're very similar to what he had on. I don't remember exactly what they were at the time, but it worked out. It turned out to be it was a very successful costume. Certainly one that I didn't put too much thought into, but it worked out for the best. So, but yeah, Halloween obviously just a few days away, and I've always enjoyed it. So, anyways. Before we get to Thursday Night Football, another form of horror and torture, potentially. Big trade yesterday, and it came at the hands of the Chicago Bears, and it benefited the only undefeated team in the league, and that's Robert Quinn going from Chicago to Philadelphia. And initial reaction is, I mean, this is a home run move for Philadelphia. I mean, what's there to complain about when you make this move on a team that I think a lot of people think is might be the best team, certainly in the NFC, and it is challenging for that title in the entire NFL right now.
Yeah, and you can never have enough pass rushers. This is someone who's a two-time Pro Bowler, having a bit of a down year, although he was a force Monday night against the Patriots. And again, it's a new coaching staff in Chicago, new defensive scheme, so maybe it's taken time for him to adjust. Now he goes to Philadelphia for a fourth-round pick, which, you know, I think is a really good move for the Eagles. They're all in to win this thing. And I think sometimes when you're in a city that they're, you know, a very fervent fan base, the Eagles, but now you got the Phillies playing in the World Series. That has a tendency of pumping up all the organizations. It's like, if you're running the Eagles, you're like, well, the Phillies are getting a lot of traction right now in the city. We're 6-0. Let's go make another move to get even better. And look, if you look forward to the playoffs and you're facing whoever in the playoffs, you know, adding another pass rusher is a good thing for the Eagles.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's only, well, I mean, we this team is it's very well balanced. I mean, they have pretty good position groups across the board. So, you know, it's basically just strengthening what they already have. Now, you can make the argument, and Sal Powell did that on one of the recent Eye Test for Two podcasts that we had him on as a guest, made the argument that maybe they might go and try and acquire a running back a la Jay Ajayi, which was a kind of a key addition in their Super Bowl run in 2017. You know, right now, Miles Sanders, nice player, but, you know, that's certainly a position that they can upgrade, but it's not necessary. And, you know, adding, you know, more of a ferociousness to this already pretty potent defense is it's a scary proposition, and certainly one that might have had was inspired by the maybe surprising pressure that's being put on them by both the Giants and the Cowboys. Because think about it, John, the only undefeated team in the league is the only team that really has competition in their division, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean, we've got teams that are at 500 or below 500 that lead their respective divisions, including Tampa Bay. Buccaneers lead the NFC South at 3-4. Philadelphia 6-0, and they've got Dallas 2 games behind them, and the Giants 1 game behind them. And if you told the Eagles fans they'd be 6-0 after 6 weeks, they'd probably figure, well, we'll have a 2-3 game lead over the rest of the division, because no one expected much out of that division. Certainly not the Giants, although I must put my hand up and say that I was on them. I didn't think they'd be 6-1 at this point, but I thought they'd be competitive. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting and fun, because the NFC East to me is the glamour division in all of football. You've got 4 of the 7 largest TV markets in that division. Look at the branding. You got the Giants, who are a legacy brand. The Cowboys are still the biggest brand in all of football. The Eagles got a crazy fan base. And the Commanders, before Daniel Snyder, were a great franchise. Maybe they'll be a great franchise again once he sells the team. But 4 of the top 7 TV markets reside in the NFC East. That was always growing up. Those are the marquee matchups, right? Dallas Giants, Dallas Washington. Philly got in there with Buddy Ryan as head coach. So it's good to see that back. And obviously, Fox, which carries predominantly NFC games, loves it that those 4 markets are at least relevant again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, I mean, and as crazy as it sounds, really, John, the 6-0 Eagles are kind of flying under the radar a bit, because it's all about Kansas City and Buffalo, and rightfully so. I mean, those are the 2 big teams in the AFC, and really it's about week to week, you know, which team is going to up the other, and that's what it is. But we talk about, like, who are the, you know, the good teams in this league, and the Eagles are certainly one of them. I think, you know, at least from the NFC standpoint, most of them reside in the NFC East. I mean, again, I sound very down on the Buccaneers, but and for good reason. I mean, there's a lot of issues with this team that I'm not entirely sure they're going to be able to be fixed. But that again can change in an instant. They can go out tonight, and we're going to get to this game here in a little bit, but they can go out here tonight and completely flip the script and change the whole narrative surrounding this team. I just don't know if it's going to happen. So, but right now you're looking at the Eagles, you're looking at the Giants. I mean, it's been 7 weeks. I think we can start, and I'm speaking to myself a little bit here. I think we can start really buying into the Giants at this point. Dallas, again, really nice run without Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's back. So, you got to figure that, okay, Dallas at least is going to be in contention. Having all these good teams in the NFC East is obviously going to limit their playoff potential. I mean, this could end up hurting them in the end, say, if they finish third in the NFC. But at the same time, I don't know what other good teams there are in the NFC outside of the NFC East. I said Seattle might be. I think Seattle is. I mean, again, through 7 weeks, they look like they have a very explosive offense and a competent defense. That's a pretty good formula to win in this league.
And Minnesota's flown under the radar. They're 5-1, but I think we still have that
until Kirk Cousins can play and produce consistently on prime time. I just cannot buy the Minnesota Vikings because in order to win a championship, you're going to have to win in prime time, and I have absolutely zero faith that he can do that on a consistent level.
Well, I mean, Philadelphia's got the best record. We still have some question marks about Jalen Hurts. We both like him, but we don't know how to
sure.
And then Dak Prescott hasn't really shown in the postseason himself. And then the Giants have Daniel Jones. They're winning with different.
I'll tell you this: I'd rather bet on the uncertainty of Jalen Hurts than what we know about Kirk Cousins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because Hurts has more ways to beat you than Kirk Cousins does too.
And just because Jalen Hurts hasn't done it yet doesn't mean he can't. Like what I mean? Like we've seen him enough in primetime games to know that, his game takes a step back. I don't know what it is, but primetime Kirk Cousins, and you can't win in this league without being able to win when all the spotlight is on you.
But generally, in prime time, you're playing better teams, so that can factor into it as well. But his numbers in those prime time games are bad, right? Where they just throw two teams together and hope for the best. The Bears and Commanders a couple of weeks ago are case in point.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we've only had one Thursday night game with teams with a winning record, and it was like Seattle and New York. So really, it's kind of a weird dynamic. But you look at the Eagles, and it's like, okay, they're doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, Howie Roseman, when it's all said and done, might end up winning the Executive of the Year award. Because let's not forget the A.J. Brown move in the offseason, which, I mean, that looks like a stroke of genius right now. He grabbed someone who is very unhappy in his current situation in Tennessee, a phenomenal player, and linked him up with a guy that he knows very, very well. So, and it's worked out wonderfully for them. So, and this move could certainly end up paying dividends. And let's not kid ourselves; they might not be done because they have a lot of draft picks, John. And again, going back a few years, the Carson Wentz deal. I mean, they somehow fleeced the Colts out of a first-round pick for Carson Wentz. They've acquired multiple picks since then in various other trades. So they have draft capital to go out and make another move. Is it going to be for a guy like Kareem Hunt? I mentioned a running back before, and, the word on the street is he could be had for about a fourth-round pick as well. And that's certainly something that the Eagles, I'm sure, would be more than willing to do because that would really, really take them over the top.
Yeah, I mean, they've got that draft capital. They're willing to make those moves, and they smell the finish line, that they have a chance to win yet another Super Bowl. And they're such a well-constructed team because of their dominance on both lines of scrimmage. And I think that's maybe old school, but in the end, you see a lot of games on Sunday where a great quarterback doesn't have time to throw, or they're not able to run the football, or the other team is able to put pressure on you. So I think that's how Philadelphia is constructed. It's kind of an old school way, but their offensive line is as good as it gets, and as is their defensive line. Then you add Robert Quinn to the mix, and they're that much deeper.
Yeah, and then, like I said, I mean, On paper right now, it looks like a good move. Again, we all remember the dream team, Philadelphia Dream Team. And I know Eagles fans are hoping it isn't Dream Team 2.0. So, all right. So tonight, we have what probably looking on the schedule prior to the season was going to be a marquee matchup. It still is because again, I'm obviously down on the Bucs right now. But you have the Buccaneers hosting the Ravens, and the Bucs are going to be without essentially their entire secondary. Russell Gage is now not on the field for the Buccaneers, and there's several other injuries. I've said it before, though. I'm not too worried about the injuries. Every team has injuries, and you can't fix that. It's the coaching, it's the game plan, it's the philosophy of this team. I hope that changes, and until it does, I can't really. All my faith is in Tom Brady's arm, and that keeps me alive. But at the same time, it's 7 weeks into the season, and you're looking like your third week of the preseason, trying to figure out a very vanilla offensive game plan, and that's concerning for me. So, what happens when the Ravens, who have one of the worst pass defenses in the league, comes to town? Well, if they start by trying to run the ball, I'm just going to throw the controller out the window and just get ready for Friday's show because I know what the result's going to be. And it's going to be a frustrating, low-scoring loss for the Buccaneers because they cannot run successfully. And it's not there's many factors to it. I mean, it's the injuries on the offensive line. That's the biggest impact injuries have is that offensive line. But even then, it's the philosophy. It's the plays called. It's the flow of the game where there just doesn't seem to be any. People point to, oh, well, they threw X amount of times. Well, yeah, you have to watch the game and understand that there is no rhyme or reason for what they are doing. So when they consistently put themselves in second and third and long, well, of course they're going to be forced to throw a ball, and especially if you run on back-to-back plays to start a drive and gain nothing. Well, guess what? It makes it infinitely more harder to complete those third and longs, especially when you have a limited offensive line because, well, the defense knows exactly what's coming. And they knew exactly what was coming to two previous plays because that's what the Buccaneers have been doing is being very predictable. So, I mean, I look at this and I'm like, man, I couldn't imagine a 3-5. The season wouldn't be over by any stretch of the imagination, but it would be getting harder and harder to come back from falling down 3-5 and trying to find that confidence, that swagger, so to speak, that makes these championship teams. So, this might come as a shock to you, but this might be the most pessimistic I've ever been about a Tom Brady-led team this late in the season.
I think I like their chances tonight, and I kidded about it on Monday that the short week may actually help them because it will allow them to maybe simplify things and just go with what they're good at, which is let Tom Brady throw it 45, 50 times, throw on first down. There's a shocking concept. With the shorter week. Sometimes
let me point out real quick too, and I know people are out there, and this is kind of like the numbers are deceiving because people are like, oh, he's throwing. Well, they're throwing because they fall behind and they finally pick up that game late in the game, and you realize, oh my God, it works, but it's too late. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I think sometimes with these poor coaching staffs, the longer that they have to get into the film room and dissect and come up with a game plan, the worse. I mean, we saw that with Dan Campbell.
It's like George, right? My presence in this office can only hurt my chances for the promotion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just sometimes don't say anything. You win by not saying anything. You win a lot of arguments by letting the other person speak more. So yeah, the shorter week, they're at home. Look, both teams need to win. Baltimore's, like I said before, they played 28 quarters this year. And they've been the dominant team in 24 of them, and somehow they're 4-3. They just have these really lapses late in games, whether it was against the Jets, the Giants. No, it was against the Giants, and obviously the big one was against Miami and Buffalo. I mean, they could very easily be 7-0. They've played well enough for most of their 7 games to be 7-0, but they're not. So I think that it's going to be an interesting matchup. The two quarterbacks. That's always fun to watch, Brady against Lamar Jackson. So it should be an interesting game. A lot of stories involved, with Brady and Tampa Bay, and obviously with Baltimore not being able to close out games. So should be a good Thursday night game, I would think. But I like Tampa in this game. They're at home, and I think the short week actually helps them.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think the stuff that I've talked about for it's essentially the entire season has kind of hit a boiling point this past week, John. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that might and that's the one silver lining where I think now that there's so much information out there to show you how bad this rushing attack is for historically bad. Statistically, it is the worst rushing attack in NFL history, John. And that's not me exaggerating. That is it is backed up by several numbers. So, I talked about, we played that exchange on Monday between a reporter and Byron Leftwich. I can only hope that what we've seen transpire over the last handful of days and the amount of heat that's really starting to build on this coaching staff, I really, really hope that they've taken a good hard look in the mirror, because the initial reaction of my, so far through these first few weeks, and specifically the Leftwich response to that question, makes me believe that they didn't feel or know that it was that big of a problem. So my hope is, John, that the incessant whining from myself and many others has finally maybe been driven home because of what's finally leaked into the national media, and they're starting to kind of pile on that as well. Because look, when you look at it, when you look at these game plans and you watch this team play, it's just there's no creativity to it. There's no usage of motion. There's hardly any hurry up offense until late in the game. Someone shared a clip last year where they opened the game. First drive of the game, they were doing the hurry up offense, moving the ball down the field. And I'm like, where the hell has that been this entire season? This team has not scored a touchdown the entire first quarter, and in any first quarter through the first 7 weeks. And
that's incredible.
It is. And it's like you sit there and say, oh, no, we're just going to keep doing what we do. How? Like, if you're Todd Bowles, and for the first time in Tom Brady's 22-year career, he is under 500 at this point in the season, I think it's probably on them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to figure that, okay, what are we doing wrong? Well, and up until this week, and I still am not convinced that they've come to come to light here in this situation. Up until this week, I don't think that they saw that as a problem. And, their philosophy, talk about, old man being outdated. Well, this is what it kind of feels like. We're going to run the ball, ground and pound, running and defense. Well, no. First of all, that's not how the league is played anymore. Second, you have Tom Brady. It's foolish to think that you can win in this league doing the exact opposite of what your strengths are. And that is, throwing the ball. And we saw it last year and the year before. Because guess what? Now you're seeing, and you shared this with me too, and this is one of the big issues the Packers are having that they didn't have last year, and that's drops. Well,
mm-hmm.
The Buccaneers are having drop problems just like they were last year. They were second or third in the league in number of drops last year. They're right up there again this year with I think it was 16 already through 7 weeks, which again is absurd. But they were able to overcome it last year. They were able to overcome, lackluster rushing attack last year. But it was also far more creative of an offense. Like, they didn't force feed Leonard Fournette the rock. And again, I think he's taken a massive step back, massive being the key word, because we all know he came in a little hefty into training camp. And I think it's shown in he doesn't have a real burst unless he's in wide open field or he catches a ball in like a swing route, which I think is his strength anyways. So the insistence of having to continually try to run him up the gut when we've seen him, not just him, again, this is an offensive line issue as well. But we've seen a pretty consistent failure on those short yardage attempts that I just don't understand how you keep going back to that well. And like I said, you're playing in this week, and it's something they didn't do last week, which again is puzzling, but you're going up against a very bad pass defense. Throw the ball. That's it. I want to see them come out. Remember, John, this had to have been 2013, 2014, 2015, whenever the Vikings had the Williamses, okay? Smack dab in the middle of that defensive line, you had just a stud defensive front seven. going up against the New England Patriots. And how were the Patriots going to run the ball against them? You know what they did? They didn't. They didn't. They came out, spread them wide, and just did the hurry-up, up-tempo offense and controlled that game like it was nothing. And they humiliated the Vikings. You know why? Because you had Tom Brady, and he's the guy that can do stuff like that. So, to me, this season for the Buccaneers, forget about the injuries. Forget about, left guard and all these other issues. It's about coaching. You can overcome injuries in this league because every team deals with them. Every team deals with poor decisions or drop balls. I mean, some more so than others, and that can certainly be discussed. But the point is like, blaming injuries on these struggles I think is a cop-out, because the real issue lies in coaching. Because not only is it play calling, not only is it flow of the game, it's just overall discipline and focus and intensity, and that all goes back to coaching.
Yeah, I think one game that we talked about was the playoff game against Philadelphia last year. They came up in a no huddle, opened the game in no huddle, and they just moved right down the field. Yeah. And it was 7-0. Now you got the other team chasing you, and you can maybe take them out of their offense. I've always felt that sometimes these coaches just don't want to cede any power to the quarterback. Well, okay, that's fine if the guy's in his second year and he's learning an offense and he doesn't have the experience. When you got a guy who's been in the league forever, who has all that institutional knowledge, take advantage of him. What the hell do you have him for at that point? Like, to play someone else if that's what you're going to do. And I feel the same way in Green Bay. Like you have a quarterback who's at a PhD level. Let them use that to their advantage. And like you said, you spread the defense out. Now you render those big, tough interior defensive linemen useless, because after about 3 plays, they're out of breath. Now you got to start rotating your defensive linemen, and then now you're putting in inferior players. So, yeah, I don't understand it. But again, coaches have massive egos as well. I think this is what people sometimes forget. Like, so many of these coaches that have won Super Bowls because of the quarterback never want to give the quarterback a massive amount of credit. It's always like, well, we, which I understand. The coach does play a very important role, but the quarterback is still more important.
In the history of this league, there's been only a few coaches that have won with consistently subpar, not subpar, but mediocre quarterback, non-elite quarterbacks. Let's put it that way. And
it's Joe Gibbs.
Yeah,
Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls.
That's kind of what it is. It's Joe Gibbs.
Yeah,
and everyone else.
Look,
so yeah.
I mean, Bill Walsh, great coach, no question, right? Won 3 Super Bowls. Well, the next year, George Seifert took over. The 49ers were even better. They just blew through the competition in 1989, unlike any team we've really ever seen. And Joe Montana, right? So, and then Steve Young comes along, and they're still competitive, and they win a Super Bowl with George Seifert. So, yeah, I mean, just look at Belichick's record with and without Tom Brady. Whether you want to even
and Belichick's a great coach, and that's not what that's. And here's the thing: we're not. No, I'm not going to hear about this. He's not a great. That's absurd.
I think he's a great coach. I just don't. I've never bought into he's the greatest coach ever, because the sport's 102 years old, and there's been a lot of coaches and.
The guy has the second most wins in NFL history right now. I'm not going to push back at people calling him the GOAT. I think he's been unfairly harped on these last few years. I mean, the idea that all of a sudden, like, I'm not buying that. We can have that discussion another day, just because I feel like that would we're running out of time.
That could take up a while.
Yeah, that could take a while.
I'm ready for it, but yeah. Let's do a separate one on that one.
But I'm saying, even Bill Belichick, you need elite quarterbacks in this league to win. I mean, I've always said that, and I've said it from a philosophical standpoint, not a Belichick versus Brady thing. And Belichick would agree with me, because I believe he's actually said it, that, yeah, well, players are more important because they're the ones on the field. Coaches are, you need good coaching to prepare and all that stuff, but when push comes to shove, it's the players on the field making the plays. So if you're going to ask me what's more important, a great coach or a great quarterback, I'm going to say a great quarterback, because ultimately they're the ones making the plays on the field. So, and then that's where it's at right now. Like, I don't want Todd Bowles' team. I don't want Byron Leftwich's offense. I want Tom Brady's offense. That's what I want, because that's what's successful. Not this dink and dunk, rush the ball, like force the run. You know what I mean? Like, it's frustrating. But all that said and done, I'm taking the Buccaneers tonight. because I'm going down with the ship, pun intended, I guess. You know, if like I said, I mean, it's frustrating. I think that the issues are obvious and they're very fixable because it's more or less about philosophy and not lack of talent. The only problem is that ego going to be too much to overcome? And I'm talking about the coaching staff. So
yeah, exactly. They want to do it their way rather than the right way or the winning way.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here today. Tomorrow we will be back Friday, obviously, to give our full slate of picks for Sunday's action and, of course, react to this game. Hopefully, in a more joyous manner. Maybe we can, talk about Tom Brady throwing like 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. But hey, you know what? Best touchdown interception ratio in the league, my man. He still got it. Well on his way to an MVP. So, anyways, thank you everyone for listening. Give us a follow on Twitter at Full Press NFL, and of course, head over to at Full FPC Radio Live for our show's account. So, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you tomorrow.